I always have young students like from different countries. I have a collaboration with a university in France, in Vilnius, in
You take
Lithuania.
interns, you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
and I always advise them, look, guys, this is a total commitment to be able to do it in a very high level. It's like being an actor or being a director or being a musician, you know. It's like you see Keith Richards, it's like 80, whatever, you know. And it's like you think it's so easy, but I mean, it's so easy because he breathes it, he sleeps your music, you know. It's the same thing, you know. If you want to be, again, it's your personal thing. If you do it as a job, don't do it.
That was my next question.
It's a shit job.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Cyprus, brought to you by Domenica Group. I'm Alexandros Tsangaridis,
I'm Kyriakos Charalambous.
and today we're talking about crafting the modern Cyprus with Andreas Vardas. Mr. Andreas, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for accepting our invitation. So, as a start, could you please briefly talk about yourself, your experience in the market so far, and obviously about Vardastudio, your baby?
I set up the office 1997. I came back from London. I was working 5 years. I arrived January the 15th, and January the 17th, I had an office. So I saw a lot of changes, a lot of challenges, and I saw the evolution of Cyprus architecture over the last couple of years or decades or whatever.
It's interesting because it feels like Cyprus being a country that evolves rapidly and it evolved in different stages. So did the real estate market and obviously architecture. And it's very interesting because architecture is inevitably a big part of our culture. So what are the current trends that you see, and how do you compare the trends in architecture and the clients to say 2-3 decades ago when you started this journey?
I think architecture is it's in a way a very limited profession of how many people they are interested, you know, in the real architecture, you know, and that's why architecture is a matter of education. The people of, let's say, North Europe, you see they have an understanding about architecture. If you talk to them, they even are aware of architects. They are aware of architecture as design and everything. Um, in recent years, we have, if we take Cyprus, we have a model. It was the when I first came and I did my first house, they thought I was from Mars, you know. And it took a lot of years to try, and a lot of because when I came back from London, my aim was to educate my people, you know, the people of my own country, to do. And I started with some private houses, and I never had any approach from any developers because they didn't like what I was doing, because the trend at that time was a pitch roof with two columns in the front, or some kind of mock Mediterranean traditional. But it wasn't actually traditional, because it was you could see in Spain, in Portugal, was the same thing. So I had no place for the developers, because they had no chance to sell, as they said. Then I did a lot of private houses, won a lot of competitions. Then try to slowly to introduce that, even in when I say developing is real estate, you know, that you buy a property. This is what real estate is. So slowly we saw a different phenomena in over the years. Then we had the English looking for a place in the sun, you know. So it was like we saw this kind of mass productions, low quality, low cost, just guys come here to get blasted because Kia was cheap. Then we had a different kind of markets that because of the wars, a lot of Serbians came here, then the Russians came here, the Chinese came here. Now we are in a way that we have a lot of Israelis and a lot of Europeans now coming here because the Europeans, they fed up. I think COVID make us realize that is not a problem working remotely, you know. So people say, okay, I'm going to come in a low tax region and a better climate, more safe environment, more secure environment. So we see a lot of Europeans coming. Obviously, with the Europeans, they are much more interested because they're going to live here. It's not for investment, to make a place for living, to make a home. And even in real estate, this is the application. People come, and in a way, it's like a custom-made house you're making for them. Now, what kind of customers Cyprus attracts is a different story. Is still we don't have the very high end, you know, design-wise. I'm saying not rich. Rich, we have a lot of rich people. I think what we need to be very careful is, you know, we saw the booming of Limassol and the whole agenda of Limassol with the Russian community and all these kind of things. Unfortunately, a lot of the Cypriot even developers and real estate agents, developers, they are want to make the Dubai effect. You know, is that what the Russians and what the Chinese are looking?
The biggest, the tallest.
The wow factor.
No,
You
no.
know, people say, I want wow. Someone came to me and said, I want a wow house. I said, well, wow, you can get the best wow if you go to the circus, because you see the guys flipping. You know, it's unbelievable. So basically, I think we need to understand what is the kind of clientele we want to attract.
Yeah, very true.
At the moment, it's very difficult to segregate this, because when the business is working and everybody's selling, and there seems to be a boom here, it's not so easy to change. You change that if something doesn't work.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
I was recently, actually, last week in Dubai. I used to have an office in Dubai with a local guy. I left because I didn't live there. I just had an office, you know. I did a house in the Middle East. I did an office in Saudi. You see now, and I was like, even my friend, my partner there, I met him now. He said, "You were a prophet." You know, 10 years ago, I said, Dubai will evolve to start having a much more quality architecture. Now, if you see Abu Dhabi, they create this cultural zone there, which like they invite the best architects in the world. They did the Louvre, now they're doing the Guggenheim, they did the Abramic Center. Even in Dubai, you have Zaha's building, UN Studio buildings, you know, buildings that they are attracting a different sense of clients. In Cyprus, depends on our scale, we're doing good stuff. We're doing good stuff. I mean, some of the towers in Limassol, 2-3 towers, are very good towers. Here, people realize that you need to give to people the design. First of all, maybe even the regulations say that we need to have an energy A-class buildings, means that we cannot do something that 20 years ago. So, but even the clients, they are much more demanding. They understand materials, they understand the services.
They're more educated.
They're
in
much
general.
more educated. And you see examples of high-end stuff at the moment. My wife is from Lithuania. She's an architect as well. Some of the biggest offices in Lithuania were very good friends of ours. They came to Cyprus. They were actually very impressed by the developers because they said it's such a high quality buildings here. And what I want to say, architecture counts, design counts, and the biggest example of this is Apple. When Steve Jobs invited Johnny Ive, the designer from England, and to start this revolution that technology you need to have design, that's where everything, And in architecture, it's like fashion. Why you pay for a Dior costume? It's the same thing why you need to pay for a beautiful chair. Yeah. So we are in a right track. We need to maintain to keep up architecture. And obviously is what the individual, what is a benchmark of each individual. My benchmark is different. Always since I came from England, my benchmark was what will be my friends in London or my professor will say. Am I going to be embarrassed to show him my work? So that's what I'm saying. It's a different benchmarks.
Yeah, there's a personal view.
It's the same personal thing. Like, for example, in Dubai now you have the more boutique developers. For example, Omnia, they invited Foster's, Zaha, and they want to make much more boutique buildings.
It's true. And you touched on like some very interesting items, and you're very right. I mean, from a financial point of view, is what you said. When something sells, when the market just flows, the need for change decreases, right?
Of course.
It's true that because, again, based on what you very well said, we decided we wanted, it happens. There are many opinions on that. The quality of clients started increasing in Cyprus, and with that, what they were expecting, so the expectations started rising. Developers inevitably had to increase in standards. If I don't want to talk about anybody else, so I'm going to talk about Domenica Group,
Of
right?
course.
If I see myself as a developer now compared to 10 years ago, even 5-6 years ago,
There's no comparison.
there is no comparison. And actually, part of it is what you said. The fact that now by law you have to design and get a license for a minimum energy efficiency of B, and most of the developers do A, changes the actual construction substantially, right? But at the same time, even on, say, a competitiveness level, since that's where you want to go, since that's where the market is, if you don't develop in that standard,
You're
you're
out,
history.
you're out of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
You're out of the game.
Exactly. Alexander,
What would your advice be to someone who's thinking to study architecture?
Architecture.
Yeah.
You need an absolute commitment.
Okay.
It's 5% talent and 95% hard
You
work.
think so?
Absolutely. It's not such a thing as talent.
Well, there is such a thing as talent, but obviously you
develop.
mean
And talent is a word that if you have a talent and you don't regenerate it or you don't move it on, you're going to stay
it's
there.
gonna stay.
I mean, you need to be interested in architecture. I mean, architecture is like it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's not a profession.
It's a fine art. It's a fine art.
Yes, you are an architect. This is your lifestyle. All my holidays is to see buildings. I go abroad to see buildings. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That your wife is an architect also.
It's
so
not only that.
it's
Before,
it's okay. I'm talking
before I
about the
had the same.
holidays.
This is what I say to you. I always have young students, like from different countries. I have a collaboration with a university in France, in Vilnius. In
You take
Lithuania.
interns, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And I always advise them, look, guys, this is a total commitment to be able to do it in a very high level. It's like being an actor or being a director or being a musician, It's like You see Keith Richards is like 80, whatever, you know, and he is like, you think it's so easy, but I mean, it's so easy because he breathes it, he sleeps your music, you know, it's the same thing, you know, if you want to be, again, it's your personal thing. If you do it as a job, don't do it.
That was my next question.
It's a shit job.
Because there is demand. There is demand right now for
It's
it. It's
demand.
a modern thing to study now.
Well, the biggest problem, you know what? I mean, we had this conversation with the Architects Association, UNETEC, you know, it's like it's too many universities. Well, do you create architects or do you create unemployed people? I mean, this is a massive
Yeah.
question. It's not only in Cyprus, I mean, it's everywhere.
And in many different professions.
In
Yeah,
many
yeah.
different professions. And you never need to see where you stand when everything is in a boom level. You need to see what is your level when things are much more slow down. No, this is where you need to see your level. I always said to people in my office, if you are, you're gonna go ahead, you're gonna go far. If you are committed, then your boss will give you an increase.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need to ask. If you are not committed, don't expect someone to give you this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier when you were talking about designing, redesigning Cyprus, developing Cyprus, and about the public sector, right? How is the Cyprus public sector as one, a client, because I know that in the past you've done work for them, and two, and actually for this it's more interesting to me, as the entity that provides the guidelines. And I'm going to explain what I mean. Say that you have a plot, and in that specific plot, you have a building density, a maximum number of stories, and stuff like that. That basically defines what this place will look like 20 years later, right? Because if it's a place with a very low building density, you know you're going to have, say, more small, like larger story houses, while if it's a very high coefficient, it's going to have a lot of blocks of flats, for example. This is just to bring everybody on the same level. So yeah, do you think that on that front we are being proactive?
No, we are very behind. We are very, very behind. When was the first? I'll give you an example. When was the first crash of Dubai? In 2008, I think. Sheikh Mohammed realized that developing cannot go ahead of infrastructure. So immediately they start doing the infrastructure of Dubai, like the metro, a lot of other things. Here we still developing go ahead of infrastructure. And I might say that we cannot do our cities without a master plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not only coefficient, because first of all, the coefficient is absolutely wrong. It's absolutely ridiculous. You cannot have a high density and to allow 2 stories. And 3 or 4 stories is absolutely nothing. It's not about tall buildings. If you want to have tall buildings, you can have tall buildings, but you must have a master plan, not just to say it's an area where you're going to do it. And we need to, because one zone, the same zone, it cannot be the same in one place and in the other. So you need a master plan. So this is one of our biggest problems. That's why we are, in a way, fighting with the planning system. Say so, we still get the planning permission much more quicker than, especially in North Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But I designed something, it wasn't built, in Lusail city in Qatar, an office building. And the local guy there sent me, he said, well, you need to follow the guidelines. I thought he was going to send me the zoning, the heights, and no. He sent me the master plan of Lusail city. Lusail city is where is the World Cup final, the towers and everything. It was, I think it was probably 350. They said in every corner, they said here would be the stadium. You know, they had an absolute master plan if you want to design a city and to place things. Otherwise, and this is one of the things we need to take it seriously. We need to stop and do the infrastructure. And otherwise, again, development cannot be ahead of the infrastructure. And because this will find us, you cannot. This is the problem with Limassol at the moment. Too much traffic, because they didn't say that. I mean, in the beginning, the very, very beginning, I remember when they were going to do the towers, I went to Nicosia. In the beginning was going to be a hub around the zoo, the
Around the
public
new
garden.
marina area
Yeah.
and other.
No, not even that. Around that zone.
The old zoo.
The old
Ah,
zoo.
okay.
It was going to be a hub there. I
Okay.
said, okay, can be up. You see, it spreads. It's not a problem to spread if you decide that the whole Limassol is the hub. But
But you need to master plan before.
but you need to allocate because, for example, you need the right of access, the right of light, the right of fresh air, all this. So we need to look at it in this aspect in here.
So you touched a very interesting point, closing, about the right of fresh air and the need to design efficient spaces that are actually well thought in terms of sustainability. Sustainability, it's a very big topic nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
And people think that it's just because it's good marketing. Personally, I disagree that it's just because it's good marketing. But what do you think as an architect?
As an architect, as I said in one lecture I gave in Tirana, actually, I think it was about sustainability. I said, sustainability, I mean, first of all, if you ask us about sustainability, most people don't know what is that. It's a trendy thing to use and impress clients, impress planners, things like that. So, if you want to have a sustainable architecture, first of all, as an architect, if you don't have this in the back of your mind when you design, it means you're not a good designer, you're not a good architect. You need to take this in consideration because as an architect, you have to take care of the cultural, climatic, economic orientation, scale, and everything. So you need to take this. At the moment, we are not sustainable because it's coming from the previous conversation, because we don't have the master plan of how to utilize this. For example, we see with photovoltaics, we have too much now. We're a country with 300 days, we should have been self-sustained. So the electricity authority, which is a monopoly, is years behind. We have a problem with water, a problem that is not about the greenhouse effect. That's bullshit. It's not about that. Cyprus, through the years, they had this thing, and we still don't have
Enough dams and
not only dams, a government plan for this that the Arab countries have and Israel has. Third one, we are in a position to understand that something sustainable always goes with a cost. You know what is the most sustainable structure ever? It's a spaceship. Spaceship creates energy, handles the waste, recirculated energy. But why we don't do buildings like spaceship? Because it's 1 million per square meter. So we need these two things has to go together. Why a lot of people they don't do biological treatment plants? But because by doing it, to take out your money, I mean, on your investment, you will need how many years? So first, we need to put certain guidelines to be more sustainable. But about cross ventilation, all these kind of things, protection from the sun, from the west sun, from the south sun, where these people, because Cyprus we half of the time we live outside. We always need to have a big verandas, yeah, a big cover verandas. And the stupid planning law of the 60s says you only allow 25% of cover verandas. We should have been 40%. So it's all about, again, it's not only a word. When you use a word, you need to support it with actions.
So, looking ahead, what are your aspirations for Vardastudio, and how do you see the architectural landscape evolving in Cyprus in the next decades?
If we don't go to the Chinese and Dubai model and we turn to the European model, architecturally, I'm saying, and I think it's a lot of young, good architects who think then the future is there, because don't forget Cyprus is one of the highest educated countries in the world. So people, because you travel with the social media and everything, you see around. So you're much more receptive to things. Now, Vardastudio. My aim is to work until 100, personally. Vardastudio, I think I am in a position now that I'm a bit not so happy because I'm fashionable now, and it's like you need to say,
You preferred when you were struggling?
It wasn't struggling. It's not about struggling. You need to reinvent yourself.
To prove yourself to
No, it's not about, it's reinventing yourself. This is what if you ask me, my inspirations now as a Vardastudio is to reinvent me and the office all the time, to look for new things, new ideas, new materials. This is, I think if you ask me, this is what it is,
Because you came and you said, originally in the conversation, you said, I was telling people and developers that you need to come here. They were disagreeing with you until they actually realized that you were right.
Yes.
Now they
So
came here.
now they
you are
came
leaving.
here, so you need to show them.
Yes, exactly. The next
The
20
next step,
years.
the next
I
step.
show them before 20 years, the next 20 years. Now I need to show the next 20 years.
What's the next biggest trend that's coming?
I think that the biggest trend in architecture at the moment international is this parametric design with the computer aid, because we have the technology of doing so.
The smart
But
housing.
it's not only that, it's the design. But in my opinion, the most important thing in architecture is the locality. To make things that is suitable for where you live. It's like the greatest chef is someone that collects the
Local materials.
their local materials, helps and make it. And now if you ask me what my favorite architects are, the Latin Americans, the Brazilians, because they touch, to the they don't care. The Europeans, they don't like them, so fucking what?
Don't buy it. Nice.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you
guys.
really,
Was
Thank you for
very
your
for your
nice.
time. We hope you enjoyed it.
I did
We
actually.
definitely enjoyed
I
it.
did.
We are glad
Thank
we
you.
did.
Okay.
And thank you everyone for watching, and see you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Να είσαι καλά. Thank you.